Good morning. How's it going, Devin?
Good. Are we the only
I
ones here
can't
this
hear you,
morning?
but
I'm just like
looks
surprised as heck.
hello.
This is Brooke, my
And I'm not so good at reading lips, but you guys look great. We can wait a minute or two, see if anybody else is going to join, and then we'll hop right into it. We've got some interesting stuff to hit on here. And I think it's pretty pertinent to what we're leading our communities through and our clientele through with regard to, the road ahead, kind of looking at where we've been going over the last 10 years. Let's see, I think Bianca's hopping in, and then we'll let her sync up, and then we'll get off to it. Okay, Bianca's in. We're gonna hop right into this today. One thing that I'm hearing pretty consistently from agents in our brokerage and just in Central Indiana in general is some feedback from their clients that they're going to wait for interest rates to come down, that they're going to wait until it hits, until interest rates dip into the fives. And typically when I hear this kind of language, what I think they're really saying is, we know we want to move and we want to buy, we want to sell and, upgrade, downsize, what have you. However, we're not comfortable with the interest rate. What we typically see happen coming out of that is the weather gets nice and they say, okay, let's start looking anyway. And so the reason I want to hit on that today is that we have a reality in Central Indiana where the market at hand is the most favorable to buyers across the next, let's say 65, 75 or 60 to 75 days, as we're probably going to have through 2023. And in that, we have specifically buyer clients who are often looking to save a few $1,000s in interest rate over the course of a year by trying to time an interest rate dip that I think it's fair to say, for 2023 is largely going to maybe span 1 to 3 weeks here and there, and that's really, really tough. Like to try to time a home, locking up a home and pending it in a 1 to 3 week window when interest rates dip down and you lock in is extremely difficult. I think a better play, instead of trying to save a few $1,000s in, let's say year one on playing that game, I would look at positioning a buyer client to pick up a property at a value sometime, let's say over the next 75 days, but any time in the year. So if you're able to get what maybe is going to go for, a home at, let's say 350, 360 in second quarter, if you're able to pick that up for 240, 245, even if that interest rate is sitting at, a 7% interest rate over 5% interest rate, if you position that in such a way that that buyer is able to refi that, okay, with the refi underwriting or loan origination fees zeroed out, as some lenders are doing. I know Caliber has products for that. I think they're waiving any refi on a purchase. Those refis can go with no loan origination for like 2 years, right? So you can buy now, ride that out, have it kick and hit the window a lot easier, right? In that 1 to 3 week time period, boom, lock it up and get going. I think that is a better play this time of year rather than, hey, we're going to wait and oh, the interest rates didn't go down, and now it's second quarter, and we're going to go compete with everybody else, and we're going to go run, and I'll tell you, my belief is that the Central Indiana housing market is still going to be very, very competitive. And right now we are seeing an emotional response to a national or global, reality that is not necessarily in line with the state of Central Indiana. And I want to show you what I mean there. We're going to hop into some visuals here. If I can figure out how to share this screen. Here we go. All right. So I want to start with an article that we've got in the IBJ that just came out. We see this come out about every quarter. And that is on permitting. So let's see here. IBJ housing. I'm going to pull this up real quickly. I had this up initially and unfortunately backed it out. So what we've got I'm going to have to pull up in my text messages here. Hang with me. Here we go. All right, so area home builders see 11th straight month of falling permits. And what's interesting is that we see, let's see, share screen. So let's just take a look at this really quickly. Here we go. So we see here that, okay, 11th straight month of falling permits. And initially that's a bit of like, okay, that's real scary. I don't like that. What's going on? And, we read in what we see here is that builders filed about 7,600 permits for the first 11 months of 2022 in Central Indiana, 21% decrease from a year ago. We come down here, we see some interesting numbers. Marion County is only down about 1% off of the first 11 months. Okay. That's not inherently bad, but it's an incomplete picture. And I'll get into that more in a second here. Hamilton County down 26% over the same period last year. Hendricks County, 43% down. Hancock, 80% down. So now, admittedly, when we're looking at like Hendricks and Hancock, we're talking 46, but we're not talking 2,200. Okay. 26% is pretty significant. The reason I'm paying attention to these two numbers here is in general across Marion and Hamilton County, we've been underbuilding homes for the last decade. So even if we maintain the line, we're still underbuilding. We're not producing enough new construction homes for the demand that's coming in. And so to give that some context, I want to hop over and share another graph. If we look at the, let's see, where's that? If we look at the US GDP over the last 10 years, what we're going to see is a growth rate that's been about 22%. Okay. And, we certainly saw, that hit, on the front end of COVID. We all remember that. And, but 22% over a decade is not a bad growth rate. But if we look at that in the context of Indianapolis's GDP, and I may just have to go to our desktop here so I can get us to everything. And we look at too many windows. Here we go. We look at the GDP in Indiana. We're looking at almost double. Okay, 43% growth in GDP over the same time period. So GDP is growing very aggressively. We obviously see that for us, compared to, remember, what we had in, you know, the US, we had, this is what it looked like, you know, within COVID and whatnot. Our growth rate did not have near the tail off and is showing a much more aggressive growth rate increase. Now that's lining up with what we're seeing in our population growth. And if we go look at that, we're going to come over here and I can't find the, okay. The Indiana's population growth is sitting at about 7.4% over that same time period. But the reality we've got there is that most Indiana towns shrank in population. And if we adjust for central Indiana's population over the last decade grew by over 20%. Okay, so we're seeing the majority of the population growth in the state coming from our service area. And that is something we have to remember, is that when there is less being built, and then we take a hit to what is being built, all right, in the donut counties. And even though we just maintained the line in Marion County, we still have a supply and demand reality that plays out to a seller's market. And I think our clients need to know this, both as buyers and sellers, but certainly as a buyer, now is the time where you have the greatest opportunity to get the best deal because of the time of year, because of the emotional reaction that we're seeing from sellers, and because there are a lot of people who are waiting for interest rates to come down, that I think is very reasonable to expect those rates to come down in a blip. Again, 1 to 3 weeks at a time, we may see that dip into the 5, then back up. I expect that to be more consistent in 2024. But again, when we have this supply and demand reality, we end up with prices continuing to go up, continuing to increase. And we have an environment here, okay, and the growth of our GDP that is double the growth in the population of central Indiana, okay, that means we are able to bring more business, that we're able to pay people more, that we have a larger tax base. That means with all that, the infrastructure of housing, we are not keeping up with. And that's what our buyers need to understand and what we need to lead them through within the reality we have. And that is a hard thing to do because the game has changed. 2.5 in the last 3 years, we have reacted to this house came on the market. Let's go see it. Let's write an offer. Let's do what we can to get it. And hopefully it works out. And if not, we'll write 6 or 7 or 8 more the same way. And hopefully we get it. But now we're at a position where we still have a supply constraint. It's still a seller's market. The lending realities have changed. The supply constraint is more. I mean, guys, it cost me about 30% more than it did 3 years ago to build a 2,000 square foot house. It's materials, it's labor, it's everything. And the access to capital, the cost of that access to capital has gone up. And so within this, that means fewer homes get built. That means, and the demand is still there and the people are still coming. So I say all this to say, the narrative that I think our clients need to hear is if you're selling your homes hanging out there, there's a reason, okay? There are buyers that are waiting. There are, this is still winter. This is much more of a normal, real estate market than we've seen in the last 3 years. So either hang out and wait if you can, or understand that, you may be accepting less in sale price than you normally get. And you might have to do a little more than you have over the last 3 years to sell that home. Okay. And it's either improve it and, in the ways that you can, it's price, it's the aggressiveness of getting that listing out to a greater market. There are things we have to do that we haven't had to do in a few years here to help our sellers sell homes. And honestly, we have a challenge there in helping them understand how big of a deal that is. The upside for us is that is a greater opportunity for us to produce value than we have had in the last few years on the listing side. Okay. On the buy side, our clients need to understand the reality of interest rates. Like they just aren't going to come down, take a dip and hang for 2023. That's what I'm seeing. Again, we maybe see some dips where it come down, they stay for a little bit, they pop back up, but interest rate hanging at 5.5% past a week 3 reality is really tough. And that is just so darn tough to time the market with that, especially in second quarter. So again, my recommendation on a strategy for a buyer is go look now. And if you have clients who are looking, and they're kind of, hold off, go look at the house, go preview houses for them, get out there, and see what they might like and take it to them and ask them if they're willing to look at it. Because ultimately, if they're able to find something now and they're able to pick up value and have greater negotiating power than they're going to have, within the next, 75, 90 days plus. All right. You're going to lead them to a place where they can lock that up. Again, maybe they have a higher interest rate, but you have loan products where you can you can refi that mortgage, and it is so much easier. It is so much less stressful to lock up and refi your mortgage in a 1 to 3 week window than it is to try to pend a home, like find and pend a home in a 1 to 3 week window. And I think our clients need to hear that, because what this reality says of our GDP growth, of our population growth, and how we play in the state. Remember, Central Indiana makes up over half the GDP of the state. Okay. So we have a 20%, 10-year run. We have a 43%, GDP growth, over half of that coming from Central Indiana. Like, that tells me, when I look at the constraint of housing, prices aren't going down. It is simple economics on supply and demand. We don't have enough. And so the value we can create now is leading our buyers within that cycle. And I've got another screenshot I could show you here. It's interesting, but I just pulled up the latest screenshot on the 10-year trend on median home prices. And it just backs up what we already, what we know is, again, the case. And I'll share that with you real quickly in parting. But if we look at this, let's see, that is not the one I was looking for. Hang on. That's the old one. Here we go. Okay. Can everybody see that graph? Great. Okay, so we look at this, right? So 2013, this is 10 years of historical data. Guys, this is June, this is January. This is June, this is January. June, January, June, January, June. What's happening? Appreciation is ramping up, okay? And we're seeing a more significant dip than we've seen in years past, but this is not wildly different than we saw in 15, 16, 17. All right. It's getting ready to bounce up again. This is always the low point. And our clients need to see this. I'm happy to send this to anybody, but this is where we win for our buying clients who are willing to get out and play ball now. And they just need to know. We need to lead them to this reality. So I'm going to stop with that, see if anybody has any questions. But these are the conversations I'm having all day, every day with my community, because they need to know. Nobody is telling me in Central Indiana, man, I'm glad I waited to buy. It's just not happening. And I haven't heard that for years. It is still the case. Any questions?
Can you hear me right now, Rex?
Devin, I can't hear you, but I'm sorry. You type it in the chat or mouth it out really big, and I'll see if I can read lips on it.
How about now? Can you hear me now? No?
I'm sorry, buddy. Let's see here. Try that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Hey,
Okay,
all right.
Yeah, I just think what you said is really helpful. A very simple talking point that is easy to understand is helping people to see that if an interest rate does dip a little bit, it's not hanging out for a long time, and it'll be very difficult to time a purchase, much easier to time a refinance, less stressful, no competition. You just get to pull the trigger.
That's right.
And I think that's going to translate to buyers. And a lot of times I feel like what we do as educators is help our clients get out of their own way. You know, sometimes it's mindset, sometimes it's myths that we need to debunk. And sometimes it's just plain strategy that only we are able to really know. Not that we're smarter than our clients, but we should be more knowledgeable, you know, so we need to educate and help them to overcome like mindset things if they're sitting there thinking of in a scarcity, you know, kind of mindset, to show them there's plenty out there for you, you know, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean, we need to help our clients get out of their own way. If they want to buy, it's a great time to buy. If they want to sell, it's still a seller's market. And just being able to communicate that in a way that doesn't sound like self-interest is pretty important. And backing it up with data is a great way to try and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really appreciate that. And I can send out any of those graphs that I showed today. It's very encouraging. The fact that, you know, Central Indiana is, you know, positioned, you know, in the state as well. I mean, we are per capita the highest GDP producing state in the Midwest. And that is a strong value prop. We are also, to my knowledge, the only state where we have a centralized metropolitan area that makes up this much of the GDP. And so this is really good data to provide our clients, our colleagues, and other stakeholders in what we do to understand the context within which we are moving and providing value to the community. Any other questions? All right. Well, hey guys, it's good to see you. Happy 2023. Thanks for joining, and call me if you want to chat through any of this. If you want any of the slides and whatnot provided today, or if you have questions about what we presented. Thanks so much.